Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio. Discover your spiritual gifts live.
Welcome to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts show number 72. We are your hosts, Dave and
Vialet.
Our guest today is Lea Renay. Lea has created a new paradigm for self-growth through combining one-of-a-kind quantum technology, unique energy experiences, and exotic crystals. Her simple healing philosophy is, we are here to be, experience love, and find our truth. Lea is a conduit of light and sees a world where everyone is empowered with the tools to heal oneself. She has learned the value of taking time out to find out who she is and wants others to embrace going within for self-mastery. Before her focused spiritual journey, Ms. Renay graduated with a marketing degree and a psychology minor and worked for 2 marketing research firms. Not feeling inspired or on purpose, Lea left the corporate world in the fall of 2000 to follow one of her passions, acting. She moved from Boston to New York City in 2004 to advance her theatrical career. However, in New York, she discovered her destined role, a facilitator of self-healing. She was introduced to Reiki, where she had a beautiful white light experience during her first attunement. Always making room to grow, Lea attended T. Harv Eker's Millionaire Mind Intensive. She quickly became an entrepreneur and created a unique triad business model. At the end of one of his seminars, she is invited to a crystal store to try out Arthur Franklin's light table. The healing she had on this technology was so profound that it was the beginning of her holistic energy studio. This experience led her to research more quantum healing equipment, and the vision went from 1 chamber to 4 different experiences in only 11 weeks. Also in New York, Lea was inspired to create empowering self-love healing jewelry. She has created chakra bracelets, lotus earrings, and a lotus signature charm for each piece with the engraved words, Lakshmi Love. Lakshmi is the goddess of wealth and abundance, and she wants all to experience a great field of love when worn. Well, welcome, Lea. What a wonderful background.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you today. So you've certainly gone on the path, and you've really moved forward. So tell us more about what happened in the Reiki experience. That's always fascinating.
Oh, so I was involved in acting classes at the time, and one of my classmates was like, "Hey, do you want to come to this Reiki circle?" And I said, "What's a Reiki circle?" And beautiful connections in New York City. These hospitals donated rooms to an organization called Center of Living Light, which hosted these Monday Reiki circles. So my friend brought me to a circle, and there were about 40 people in a circle gathered in this space. And it was just magical, a beautiful way to start the week. And I said, "When's the first class?" And so it was a brother-sister team, Reiki masters. And I was in this cafeteria at this hospital. And that's where we had our attunement and our class, our weekend class in Reiki 1. And 3 of us sat in a row. And I was first in the left row. And she did this sacred symbols and the attunement. And I saw this bright light come into my top of my head. And I literally opened my eyes, and there were no canisters. I thought they had flashed the lights on in the room. And I looked up, and there was no canisters. And I just immediately started crying. And I was the only one in the class of 6 that got attuned that had that experience. And it just felt like a remembrance, like the white light was not like a scary thing. It was just like an acknowledgement of something more. It was an acknowledgement of something I may have already experienced in a past life or future life or multiple life. So it was a beautiful, emotional moment in my life where I just surrendered because I had no expectations of what becoming a Reiki attuned practitioner was going to feel like, look like, be like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wonderful. Well, that came so easily to you, so nicely. As a child, were you intuitive? Did you have flashes or precognitive things as a kid?
I could definitely say that I grew up in nature. I grew up in upstate New York.
Uh-huh.
And my family, when I was about 5 years old, they built a home at the end of a cul-de-sac in the woods. So it was the only property at the end of a cul-de-sac. And in upstate New York, we got the lake effect snow.
Yeah.
So, as you know, we're here in Denver, there's not much snow. It's like a dusting compared to what I grew up with. And I remember spending a lot of time in nature, in the woods, and by myself, in imagination and play. And looking back in some of my healing experiences with other practitioners and self journeys on some of my technology, I could honestly say I feel like I had conversations with the invisible. Let's not, not labeling it as
Mm-hmm.
God, source, infinite intelligence, just that I remember having like conversations like you and us are having right now,
Uh-huh.
but to myself outside in the woods.
Okay.
And I don't think I shared it at the time with my parents, but I know through some past journeys that I definitely was kind of talking to my invisible friends, but yet it wasn't like that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a knowing, but I didn't like tap into those gifts at that time.
Okay. Well, it's always interesting to find out how people sort of had an inkling or intuition that this was coming, and then the big aha moment happens, or the chance encounter with somebody who sort of gets you turned on or activated and fires you up. It's always reminds me of that old statement, the teacher will appear when the student is ready, and so you had your experience. That's great.
Many divine appointments of surrender and trust, let's just say. I learned a lot.
So tell us about this light table, because there's so many different light tables out there, crystal tables, laser tables, John of God tables, and all that. What was distinctive about this one?
Like what you shared, I was at the seminar and I met this guy, Ryan, and he gave me his card, and his mom created the Aura shop in Santa Monica, California. And when I met him, he's like, we got to get you on this table. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about table? I was already Reiki master at that time, Dave, but I was like, what is he talking about? I had no clue about any of this technology at this point in my journey in May of 2006. So at the end of the seminar, we had about 40, 50 people gather in this metaphysical, beautiful shop. And in the back of the shop was this kind of chamber of crystals, but it had Arthur Franklin's original light table. Now, Arthur's table has 360 flower and gem essences, 15 different color tones of light, and sacred geometry specifically. So it's specifically embedded underneath you.
Okay.
And he made the base of it to put the lights, and he made it out of copper, and copper is a conduit of energy. And every time I'm on it, I feel like I'm melting into the table. And so back in May of 2006, there are also 13 sound tubes that have 25 years of sound research co-created by Arthur and Randy Masters. And these sound tubes, at the time, Ryan hit these sound tubes, hit a couple crystal bowls, and then just left me in this room with Eternal Om CD playing. Nobody physically was in the room with me. I went on a journey after he gave little sound activation. And I went from laughing like a hyena, Dave, like literally laughing uncontrollably, sounding like a hyena, being the observer in the moment, going, I don't laugh like this. Who is laughing like this? Like, this is so bizarre. And because we just finished a marketing seminar, I was like, damn, if he had a camera in this room, I'd pay extra to get a video of whatever I'm experiencing right now. So I was totally like thinking marketing and, when Harry met Sally, I'll have what she's having.
Yes.
Like I didn't care. I was just like, so in this altered, brand new experience that I was like, I'll share. I don't care if they see me doing whatever I'm doing right now. And so I was laughing like a hyena. And all of a sudden, my arms were lifted and placed on my third eye, the point between my two eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to this dark place, like the void, and I just started crying. I wasn't afraid, but it wasn't a conscious, oh, I'm going to put my hands on my forehead right now. It wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was really profound because I felt like they were lifted and placed. I did not do it. It wasn't a bodily response. Like when I work with some clients, I'd physically twitch or, now I'm speaking in a light language since the pandemic regularly. So at that moment, Dave, I just was like crying. And my ego personality kicked in and I was like, oh my gosh, please help me remember this. Please help me remember this. And I heard clear as I'm talking to you, it's enough for now. As you could probably relate. So all of a sudden it was like my channel, my antenna was like shut off from that something greater. And I was just like blissed out, euphoric, like felt like a semi truck hit me with the emotional states that I experienced by my physical self on this table. Okay. So I'm just like, I walked out of the room and Ryan was looking at me going, like his eyes were coming out of his head. And he was just like, he's like, Lea, we've owned this table for 4 years and nobody's had that kind of experience. Can we give the inventor your number? And I said, you know what? I don't care what you do. Yes, of course. And I want to take that crystal back to New York with me. I want to buy that fairy angel deck. And I was just like, I went shopping in that beautiful blissed out state to whatever popped off the shelves. So I went bliss shopping in his mom's studio because, I didn't hold back the sounds and I didn't care because I knew it was just a few people left from the gathering.
Yeah.
I was authentically present and open to whatever was to happen at that point in my journey.
Well, your experience kind of reminds me of something out of some of the Edgar Cayce stuff where he felt that some people, some of their nervous system problems or whatever is that they moved too fast energetically and essentially caused some short circuits in their nervous system because of the rapid growth. So probably the little bit of a warning you had of we've topped off her tank for now, let's move on.
Yes, and one of the technology. So obviously the inventor of this table reached out to me because I was living in New York at the time, and he didn't have a table in New York. So he reached out to me, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready to purchase a table yet. So it wasn't until literally it was only within a year that our paths crossed again.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked me into his Gold Deluxe version.
Okay.
And at the time I had met somebody at a crystal workshop, and that relationship brought me from New York to LA, La La Land.
Mm-hmm.
And I connected with the inventor, and he talked me into his model. And I'm like, but I don't even know what kind of technology is out there. I'm not familiar. Like, what am I getting into? Right.
Yeah.
So I just Googled, I sat down because I was a little frustrated with the transaction. And so I just sat down and I Googled healing tables. And that's how I found my other two tables, by just Googling and getting upset and Googling and finding beautiful Jim Harmon and all his creations.
Okay.
And so there was no phone number on this particular website that's no longer existing. And the inventor, Jim, emailed me, and I said, I'm opening up an energy studio in LA. How much are your tables? Whoa, give me a call. I have some questions for you. And I'm like, questions for me? I'm the potential buyer.
You're being screened.
I'm being screened. I'm like, I got money. I can buy a table. What's he got to ask me? And so I immediately called him when I saw this email. And Jim was a beautiful soul. And his first question to me, you guys, was, well, let me ask you something. How long you been into all this weird stuff anyway? Jim was a beautiful soul, redneck turned spiritual healer off the grid in Ravenna, Texas. And after 20 minutes, so when are you coming down here to try out my gear? After 3 hours, I said, Jim, let me get off the phone so I could buy my plane ticket. So that's how, the universe worked, those divine appointments. Like if the inventor of the first table wasn't the way he was, it would never have propelled me to Google search healing tables.
Sure.
So it literally, I created Third Point Studios. It went from 1 chamber to 4 in 11 weeks. And I just trusted, didn't have a business plan. I was like, I just trust, that you build it and he will come kind of thing. That was me at that point in my journey because of this technology. I never tried to compare, my offerings to anyone else, because the harmonics and the frequency of what I offer and what you and Violet offer are specifically unique for each person we get to serve at that moment on each other's journey.
Mm-hmm.
So, I haven't tried the John of God bed. I have had people, who have experienced my technology, and everyone and everything is different, right? Because we're not the same frequency as the day before.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it went from 1 to 4 chambers in 11 weeks. And since I was living in Los Angeles at the time, I kind of said, oh, it's like, I want to create a Disneyland for the soul. And friends are like, yeah, you can't use Disney in your sentence or marketing because, of copywriting, all that. And I'm like, well, it is okay. It's an amusement park for your soul, adventures for your spirit. And cool. People understand or hear the buzzwords, mind, body, spirit connection. But how many people truly take sacred timeouts and work on their soul hygiene, right?
Mm-hmm.
so the studio, and I'm on my third version. It went from creating Third Point Studios in Los Angeles to being called to the mountains of Colorado. I lived in Eagle. I was moved from LA to Eagle, Colorado, where my family had a restaurant. And I quickly, within 1 month, rented a legal work live space. And I converted this little cute cottage in Eagle, Colorado to the Cottage of Wellbeing. And I lived there for 5 years. And I birthed my first child in the Cottage of Wellbeing, home water birth.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had my daughter 3.5 years later in Glenwood Springs. And then I was like, okay, I am not a small valley chick. I need to serve more people. So as I say, I moved back to civilization in Denver in 2014.
Okay.
And then I was guided to call my work Rising Harmonics. And Rising Harmonics is not necessarily my work, but it's a beautiful collective sacred space for self-actualization and healing.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to take a short break here and talk about Discover Your Spiritual Gifts for a moment. So please stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Lea Renay.
Hi, I'm Violet Rain, Master and Teacher of Angelic Reiki at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. If you love angels, if you resonate with angels, or you're just interested in learning more about angels, most people really want to consider Angelic Reiki. But you know, Angelic Reiki is more than just working with the angels and learning a new healing modality. It's about ascension. And when you step into Angelic Reiki, you're not only working with angels, but you're working with ascended masters and galactic healers. The angelic kingdom of light, which includes all of those, steps in and helps you be able to hold more light. And what I have found along this journey is it expands your ability to be able to hold light, which raises your frequency, which accelerates your ascension process. So the individuals that step onto Angelic Reiki are really ready to step onto their spiritual path, learn more about angels, ascended masters, galactic healers, learn possibly a new healing modality that they'll use in their life, but also they're ready for those major shifts in their lives to really be on their spiritual path and take their journey to the next level. If you've been thinking about Angelic Reiki, or you'd like to find out more about this beautiful modality, please don't hesitate to contact me, Violet, at discoveryourspiritualgifts.com, or check out our website under classes. You will find Angelic Reiki there with lots of information about this program and the benefits of taking this course. We hope to see you in class really soon, and I hope to see you at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts.
Well, welcome back to Discover Your Spiritual Gifts with our guest, Lea Renay. I have to ask you the follow-on question. On these tables, do people just lay on them for a session, or are you actively working with them with Reiki or other techniques while they're on the tables?
A combination of various things. I really like when I work first time with somebody, I usually create an immersion experience. So they're getting an experience on all three tables. So the first table I usually place them on is called the Altar of Light table. And Jim Harmon, who I refer to, he loved my vision, what I was going to create in LA, so much so that he sold me his only Altar of Light table. And the Altar of Light table has 6 quartz spheres with high intensity strobe light. And I was guided to change his table. And I called him one day and I said, Jim, I hope you don't mind, but I was guided to add more crystals to your table. And he goes, good girl, because I was listening. I was like, oh, okay. He was like, he's up in heaven right now. Him and his wife, Connie, beautiful souls, passed away. Connie passed away December of 2012, and he passed away 30 days later in January of 2013. So they were a beautiful soul couple, and they're their angelic presence in the studio for sure when I put people on their technology. And the altar of light table, it's tempered glass. And I was guided to put rose quartz amethyst in combination with his quartz spheres. And people lie on that. And then I have these 3 steel drums. So I get guided to play these 3 drums to get people really present. And one of my frequent flyers calls this table, I need that dump your junk table. because our back, represents our past. And the real crystals, my belief about crystals is, since they were extracted from Mother Earth, they're here to serve us. So they're these little energy beings that you can see underneath you, right? Because it's glass. And they want to absorb any stinking thinking, right? Because you're always an active participant in your healing and revealing. So I help my clients empower themselves at new levels. And I deflect. I'm a deflector as far as compliments and kudos, and I deflect back to them their greatness, because I don't want them to be reliant on me as their healer. I am just a mirror for their reflection and their activation. So I do a combination of sound and light on the first table. Then I bring them to my Kairos chamber with Arthur's original light table that I told you about from Los Angeles. And in that room, there's also sound tubes. And that room, the table is an experience in itself, but that's where I do my Reiki, arcing radio light, and matrix energetics work, and light language. So I do a combination in the Kairos chamber of all that. And then they usually finish with an initiation spin on the Trinity. So that's kind of like a 3-hour immersion.
Okay, cool.
So when clients come to you, Leah, what kind of experiences do they have from these tables, or how can they benefit? So the person listening today says, oh, that's really cool. How can it help me? Right? We've heard your experience, right? How have others experienced this, and what benefits have they gotten from it?
So there's definitely a huge stress release, tons of relaxation and stress release, to the point where they're like, I think I fell asleep. I said, no. I said, in my experiences, in my, almost, 30-year journey, 25 to 30-year journey, I have physically been knocked out to that alpha, theta, beta receptive state. So many clients, Violet, they get to an altered state naturally. I tell people I help create natural highs in a legal state. Colorado is a legal state. And so energetically, natural highs, stress release, people who have had physical pain, I assess on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you when they start the session to where they leave? They're never the same pain level, right? And so it could happen on the physical level, emotional level, mental level, wherever they are on their journey for that particular day. Like I say, you know how you go to the dentist for deep cleaning twice a year, right? It's like you brush your teeth every day, right? But how do you clean your soul and spirit every day? So it is very cleansing. It's restorative. It's surprising because it is that new experience. And depending on how open a person is and where they're at on their journey determines the level of what they receive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because if they're open and they surrender, of course, we know as healers, they get a lot more. If they come in and they doubt, or they're closed, or they've closed all their energies, they're not going to get as much because they're not open to receive. So we have to surrender a lot of times to be able to move through energies.
And when I was creating this 1 chamber idea to 4 in 11 weeks, I spoke out loud. I want to be in the business of serving those who serve many. So not like a healer's healer, but like a facilitator for people that give so much of their heart. I noticed in who I attract, Violet, it's those people that are in a service venue. It could be from serving coffee to serving, surgeries, right? Serving the body, physical body, doctors and nurses. They love receiving, energy.
Mm-hmm.
And, chiropractors know the benefits of it. Therapists know the benefits of it. And it's that dedicated stillness that we weren't programmed as children, how valuable and how important it is. Awesome. So that's why it's, when I went to Texas to try out, new equipment, I read his website, Violet, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want all this to happen to me. And so I went to Texas with some expectations. And as you know, when you have expectations, you kind of set yourself up for not as an authentic experience, because your mind is wanting something and wanting to experience something specific versus just surrendering to what is. So I was like, it was nice, but I didn't have the mind-blowing experiences that my friends did who joined me in Texas, right? So that's what I want to share with your listeners. It is all about experiencing something new, and that you are truly new, moment by precious moment.
Well, we limit ourselves through our own expectations and intentions. If and it's as simple as, I want to attract love, or I want to attract a house, or I want to attract a job. And we create this expectation of what we want. But what if the universe has something bigger and better for you? And now you've told it that you want this. The universe is going, just like your child that wants something. You're like, oh, honey, it could be so much more. Why are you limiting yourself? When you surrender and allow yourself to step into that space of no expectation, surrendering to the experience, you get so much more out of it. And that includes your intentions as well, right? So I can see that and really understand that the people that step into anything, whether it's a healer, these tables, or a reading, when you let go of the expectations and just let it be the highest best for you, you get so much more out of it, right? So your services and packages, is it always all 3 tables? Is there different programs for different people? And how often do people come and see you? So those are my questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when I was guided with this pandemic, before the pandemic, I was really being guided to offer this more intensive immersion. Okay. But the Trinity table, for example, is just one modality that I used to, before the pandemic, create group gatherings, right? So you and your staff could come in and I could facilitate this beautiful Trinity gathering where you pick a power word and each power word has a number, for example. So if there's 8 people, each person, the universe gives them a power word with their number. And I have pillows and blankets, and we could be around the Trinity table. And I am like the spiritual DJ with the music, and each person has a journey on the table. I've had families have more profound experiences on their pillows and blankets when their loved one was on the table. For example, I've hosted birthday parties in LA, right? La La Land, they want the coolest, newest thing to do, right? So I hosted birthday parties where adults would bring children, and the children would sit in stillness and be honoring the person who was on the table. So it's really, it can be catered to a group, small groups. I had a powwow of two powerful leader business owners. And so I did a mini group where instead of musical chairs, it was musical tables. So these two women, we set intentions. I gave them exercises. And then after each table experience, they would have moments to write down what came to them. So for them, it was like creativity, and they would get something on each table and then write down, okay, I know my next course of action. So it's strategic. It could be for creativity. It could be for healing. It could be one-on-one. It could be mini groups, up to 3 or 4. And the Trinity table, usually that would be maybe 8 to 9, I think, groups. So from 1 to 9, I like to work with, and I could work with. And yeah, and I'm hosting events for listeners that are familiar with plant medicine. I'm hosting events that involve certain plant medicine as for healing and group connection, helping people check in versus check out experiences, because every flavor of where you are on your life, your taste buds are going to be different, right? Sometimes you want salt, sometimes you want sweet, right? Uh-huh. And it's like, people come weekly, people come monthly, people come quarterly. I let them guide themselves. I let them get the whisper. Like, people from the Mind Body Spirit Expo are like, okay, I want my first session of my 3-pack. Other people came once a week. So it's kind of, I let people decide and hear the inner call.
I love that. So if people want to connect with you, find out more, schedule an appointment, be able to ask some questions, how can they contact you?
I would love them to just call me directly and leave a message, and then I would personally talk to them more about the details and what particular challenges or what focus they're working on in their life to kind of make a kind of energetic cocktail or elixir, right, for their first experience. I do have an immersion special going on right now, if you want me to share with your listeners. So normally I work one-on-one with somebody for $333, or if they're a little hesitant to experience all this by themselves on a one-on-one basis, they could bring up to 1 or 2 friends for the $333, right? A group experience. People bring couples, people bring their BFFs. And for your listeners, I want to offer it for $222 since it is 2022.
I love that. Oh. Love that. So what phone number can they reach you at? Tell us your phone number.
Awesome. Thank you. 720-515-4076.
Okay, repeat that one more time, just in case they didn't get it.
Absolutely. My Rising Harmonics phone number is 720-515-4076. And if your listeners want to read more information about the technology that I briefly touched upon, it's risingharmonics.com. It is in a process of updating, so please don't try to schedule or push the schedule now button, because it's still getting revamped and updated with more details.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time today to kind of share this information. I'm so excited you're right here in Denver along with us. So our listeners here can tap into that. We have listeners everywhere. So, the next time they're in the Denver area, they can stop by and schedule something, I'm sure, with you and hang out with us. Go ahead.
One more thing I forgot to share about the benefits of the pandemic. What I realized with certain clients that weren't traveling here to see me in Denver, the Trinity, this is new from the pandemic, a blessing. I FaceTime my clients and we set intentions, and then I go on the Trinity table as their surrogate, and we are FaceTiming each other, and they're in the comfort of their home, right? Anywhere in the world. And then I spin on the table and they could see me, but I guide them to close their eyes and get comfy where they are. And I act as a surrogate, what they physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally want to work on. And the Trinity portal opens up, and I'm like, a container, a vessel for that person. And my client in Iowa, she's like, I can't believe how different every virtual session is. So that's kind of fun too. So that's something I do remotely. That's a possibility as well.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. I didn't realize that. So that's incredible. So they can contact you and do virtual or in-person sessions. I love that. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for sharing with us today and telling us about your tables and your experiences in your room. I can't wait to come and experience it myself. I'm going to take you up on your special and come and see you and schedule a session, because I'd love to experience myself.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, Lea, for being on the show today. What a fantastic story. And you're probably doing so much to help so many people. So that's wonderful. For our listeners, thank you for listening to this show. Please stay with us for messages from several of our practitioners at Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. They have some great stories to tell. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Hi, my name is Julie Kay. When I was in high school in Soviet Union, I had an uncle who was a scientist who started introducing me to the world of unexplained. We looked at the past lives hardly discussed in the Soviet Union at that time, other galaxies, stars, planets, UFOs. That was all forbidden in my country by the government and did not show up in the media. When I was 16, one day I was sitting with my grandma outside of our home, looking at the stars, and thought how cool it will be to have this knowledge. Well, I was very interested of all these things. I went to college and kept silent on this subject and got a business degree. I read the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, which were gifts from my uncle. I had no one talk about this after my uncle passed, where the past lives and stories was fantasies. They didn't make any sense to me, how you can die and be reborn again. I was always interested in the UFOs and ended up seeing them on a plane flight in 1986. That seemed to answer my question about the universe, what is out there. I kept reading many books. I ended up with the Dolores Cannon books. And so on a YouTube interview with her, her work seemed to make a lot of sense with the people, the planet and the universes and the parallel dimensions and parallel realities. She came up with the information that connected clients who didn't know each other. She put the puzzle together. I had a session and I was wondering if I can have a session with someone. I had a session with one of her students and I was so clear. I found out that I could be trained in this, so I pursued hypnotherapy and then becoming a past life practitioner. So I had a second session that provided a lot of answers to me. I now provide this type of the session to a client at Discover Your Spiritual Gift based on the Laura's Cannon regression system. It starts with the client providing a list of questions that will be answered during the hypnosis session. This work gives me access to a person's subconsciousness. The subconsciousness has answered to any questions the person has consciously about their life. The subconsciousness can show the right answers and fix any problems the person has in their life. Health, relationships, changes that are desired. They can even connect to loved ones who passed. I'm available at Discover Your Spiritual Gift on Mondays. You can reach me at 303-523-8412. Thank you and have a good day.
Hi, this is Dave Barnett, better known as Dave the Mystic. I am a long-term aerospace engineer, but back in 1983, I had some events in my life that forced me to reconsider how reality works. I became involved in healing, channeling, meditation, and developing my psychic gifts. Over the years, I continued to work with these, and I had a wonderful opportunity in 2003 to take 4 years and really delve into all forms of healing, and along the way, other gifts showed up. I am now working at the center full-time, and I'm happy to offer work with past lives, with working with subconscious core beliefs. I do a lot of work with energy and entity clearing, and since I do this always long distance, I can do it all over the world. I also work with karma burning and with soul retrieval and soul splinter return. I'd be happy to work with you. Please feel free to give me a call here at the center, and we can set up an appointment. My direct phone number is 303-902-5323. Thank you and have a great day.
Hello, my name is Trina Schneider, and I am a spirit medium and intuitive reader. I also offer angelic Reiki and crystal healing. I was born an empath and have seen and heard spirits since I was a little girl. For many years, I ignored my gifts, but knew I was meant to be a healer. I started my journey doing private yoga sessions, and yoga helped me to reconnect with my mind, body, and spirit. I was then led to an intuitive mentor and took her classes to find out who I was and what my spiritual path should be, never thinking it would lead to a complete career change after being a hairstylist for 30 years. My spiritual path is a never-ending journey of healing myself and helping others. I consider my readings to be sacred and use prayer, meditation, and call upon my ancient Puebloan ancestors, angels, and other guides. In my readings, I view your energy through a rose. I connect you to your relevant past lives, bring in messages from your spirit guides, angels, and ancestors. I read the layers of your aura through your chakras to uncover blocks, bring in clarity, guidance, and direction for your life path. I do in-person readings that discover your spiritual gifts and remote readings over Zoom. To book your readings with me, please call or text me at 720-334-7754 or contact the center. I look forward to meeting you real soon.
Discover connection, awaken sacredness, become empowered. Join us for our show on Blog Talk Radio.